Hey guys, welcome back to my lifting series where I record every single set and rep that I possibly can. This is a journey not only for me to become the best lifter and athlete that I possibly can, but to also provide insights along the way and help you guys reach your fitness goals as well. So it's kind of like a two-way street where we're gonna grow stronger and become bigger together. This is Week 3, day 5 of my MyoMax training program. This is my second public program that I've ever released. If you guys are interested in either supporting me or buying the program, it's $10 down in the description. It'll take you to my website. Otherwise, and honestly, you don't really need it because I record everything that I do. And if I don't record it, then I tell you about it so you guys can follow along regardless. The only real benefit is that you can write in exactly like what you did and it's a more personalized experience for you guys. Or if you want to support me. But anyway, today is a lower body day, a true lower body day. I'm gonna be training every single muscle of the lower body, in fact. And today we're starting off with the Smith machine back squat. I like to keep like the same lifts for a whole program and then trade them out, just because I think that your body needs some acclimation time and it needs to get accustomed to a lift in order to grow bigger and get stronger at a given lift. And especially your CNS, your central nervous system, needs some time to adapt to a given movement pattern in order for you to build up that nervous system strength that is so very important, because there's two parts to strength. There's not only the muscular component, but there's also that CNS component. Anyways, I'm going up 10 pounds today. So I'm at 2 plates on each side. I think that would be like 225. And we're gonna do as many reps as I can. It's definitely gonna be a little heavy. My legs are definitely like my weakest body part in relation, you know, like most people, their legs are the strongest, but for me, they're not, just because I didn't train them properly for a long time. So we're trying to remedy that situation. Let's get into it. Okay, I love just hitting 8 reps on squats. I think that that's a really good landmark. I feel like, especially like back squats, they lend themselves more easily to moderate rep ranges, or low rep ranges. Like, I wouldn't be doing a heavy back squat for like sets of 20. You can definitely do that, but it's gonna be freaking brutal. And in my opinion, that's gonna eat into the recovery of the rest of the muscles. And I think that lifting and achieving everything you want out of lifting all comes down to balance and effort. You gotta balance that stimulus to fatigue ratio for each and every lift in accordance to your life as a whole. That's what it really comes down to. So your stressors outside of the gym, how well you're sleeping, your recovery, but also how much intensity you're putting into each of your lifts, and trying to manage that throughout your whole entire body and make sure that you're not overdoing one area over the rest. So like, if I were to do those 20 rep sets of squats, yes, like my legs would be destroyed and they'd probably make some gains in the long term over time, but that's going to eat into my recovery for tomorrow, for my accessory day when I'm going to be hitting my arms and stuff. I'm going to be way more fatigued. And that's just something that you have to strategically, if you really want to do that, you really got to strategically implement it. I'm sure that some of you will notice that when I sink all the way down to the hole, my butt like sinks down a little bit lower, and it looks a little unnatural actually. After reviewing the footage, I was like, oh, that's not right. But the more I think about it, the better of a thing it is. Because when I'm sinking down and becoming like fully down like this, even though it looks kind of strange, it's actually setting my quads up for a better line of force output. And it's kind of actually making it's shifting the emphasis more to my quads, which in this lift is great for me. You know, if you guys are looking to get more like hamstring glute out of your squats, then you may want to reposition your feet, maybe put them further back or something, or maybe it's further forward. I have to think about it. my Smith machine kind of concaves inward, which is kind of strange. So it kind of changes the whole dynamics. It's crazy how much just a little variance in a given lift can completely change a lift. Like, say you stall on a barbell bench press. Even just moving your hand positioning and changing up your elbow position just a little bit can completely reinvigorate your body's drive for becoming stronger and better at that given movement. It's crazy just how much our central nervous system adapts to a given form, and how just the smallest little change can completely change the name of the game for that given lift. Many people experience the issue where their knees like concave in when they're pushing up or even lowering a squat movement pattern. And yes, that is something that you probably want to be avoiding, just because that creates a sense of instability, which can really mess you up and it can be bad for your knee joints. So how do you remedy that situation? Well, I mean, there's two ways that you should really be focusing on. And the first one is pointing your toes out and trying to purposefully track your knees over your second foot, the toe right next to your big foot, while you're pushing up, because you always kind of want your knees to track over your toes. That's just how the human anatomy works. And then on top of that, you probably want to be training your abductors, the ones that bring the muscles, the small muscles that bring your leg into abduction and bring it out. And you can train those in many ways. You could do like some cable kicks like this, some lateral kicks, or you could do like the traditional abduction machine where you're seated and you're just bringing your legs out like that. Either way works. Either way we'll train it, and then that will help. You know, whenever you strengthen a muscle, it's going to be tugging more. So like if you're strengthening your back, it's going to be pulling your shoulder blades back at all times. So same deal with the adductors. It's going to be like rotating your knees out, which, you know, will assist with your squat form. But anyway, I just thought I'd bring that up because I was watching the footage and I was seeing my knees concave in ever so slightly. So this advice is not only for me, but also for those of you who are struggling with that issue. I've never really had it before, but you know, the heavier you go, the more your form breaks down and the more you start to notice little errors. But of course, your form can't always be perfect, so don't obsess over it too much unless it's really bad. Next up, I'm doing some Romanian deadlifts, again in the Smith machine. And I really like this progression just because I'm already in one place. Whenever I can, I try to program as many lifts in the same area. And, you know, if they're not in the same exact area, like, you know, I'm doing 2 exercises in the Smith machine, and I'll at least, according to my gym, try and program them near each other so I'm not moving very far. And I think that this is just like an easier way to save time and ensure that you're actually getting the movements done that you want. Because the last thing you want to do is like start on the Smith machine, go across the gym for your second exercise, and then have to come back to the Smith machine for your third and have it be taken. That would be such a huge letdown and such a huge bummer. Kind of like my order of operations when it comes to like which things are getting priority. I prioritize the exercise order in terms of what body parts are hit. So like I did a squat, which primarily hits the quads, and then I'm doing this, which primarily hits the hamstring. So I'm going from the anterior to the posterior side of the body, and we're going to be rotating back and forth, in fact. And then second up beyond that, then we'll start trying to get everything kind of close in proximity to each other, just to make the flow of the workout a little bit better. And then, you know, of course, you got to be ordering it in terms of which exercises demand the most effort. Does like a squat and a deadlift demands more effort than a leg press or a hamstring curl or a quad extension or calf raises, and that's why they're in the beginning, and later on those things are. So the only times that you may mix that up is if you are so unbelievably strong that you have a greater injury risk. So therefore, or you won't even have a greater injury risk, but you just have to load up so many plates, it's super tedious. So then you may want to pre-exhaust by doing something like a leg press first, or a quad extension first, and then a leg press, and then squat, and reverse the order. But I'm not at that point, and I doubt that most of you are, because not many people are. I think it was like 1% of the population, or like 10% or something, can bench 225. So, and that's not even the strength levels I'm talking about beyond that. Dang it. I hate when the Smith machine is like trying to lock on me. That's why when I initially pull, I start with my hands all the way flexed like this, and then I extend them back to really crank the Smith machine back. But even then, sometimes it creeps up and tries to lock like mid-set, and that's the last thing you want, you know? If none of you have ever filmed your workouts, or at least like film the exercises that you're not super sure about form-wise, then I implore you guys to do it at least once, because every time I film my workouts, I see something a little bit new, something that I can tweak. I may not always remember to tweak it. In fact, I should probably start writing notes or something, but you know, I try my best, and I've definitely become a better lifter because of my lifting series. So for example, I just did the Smith machine RDL, as you just saw, and while my range of motion was probably adequate, it could definitely be at least a couple inches lower, because I think that every inch that you get lower and lower, the more you're going to be getting out of the lift, because you really want that full, complete range of motion in almost every exercise for the most part. So, you know, I really encourage you guys to, if you're unsure about a lift, this is a common one that people are unsure about because it's so technical, then please like just try recording like one set, dissect it, you know, look at the pros and see how they're lifting. And, you know, I'm not saying that I'm a pro by any means. So my advice isn't like the, you know, end all be all or anything, but I think that I have some good pointers. But I mean, just look at stuff and compare, and then just try and do like an order of elimination and figure out your perfect form. Because the quicker you find out the form that you need, the better off you're going to be. You want to be building from a solid foundation. You don't want to be building from a creaky foundation that's full of errors, you know, and places that may leak some power. Because ultimately, if you have bad form, you're going to be leaking some power, and you're not going to get as strong as you want. And, you know, injury risk is going to be a real probability. All right, let's get into it. Anyway, what I was trying to say was I could remedy my form a little bit by adding another block. You guys can't see it, but I stacked up some blocks to increase the height because there's these barriers on this particular Smith machine. So without the block, I can only go down to like right here. With the blocks, I'm down here. With one more, I bet I could get the fullest range of motion. So I don't know if you guys heard it or saw it, but at the end of most, like probably half of those reps, I hit the safeties, which is not ideal because I'm trying to get that like stretch and that rebound at the bottom that I think is really important in this lift. If you're training for power, then like a box squat or a elevated deadlift off of blocks may be for you. But in this case, I'm training for muscle growth / hypertrophy. So I kind of want that bottom range of motion to be completely intact. Okay, I don't really have much else to say, so I'm just gonna get into the third set here. And then I'm gonna try and snag the leg press if possible. Oh, I have a leaf on my shoe. Sorry. I will say I'm a little hesitant to go super heavy on this lift just because of, I just mentioned it, but how this particular Smith machine concaves in. So it's actually going forward and it's leaning me forward a little bit, which puts more pressure on my low back. Whenever you're out here, that's gonna put more pressure on your low back while you're doing a movement pattern like this. So I just need to be careful. I'm kind of feeling the strain a little bit, but it's not overbearing. So I think I'm just gonna stick to this weight probably for the rest of the program and just increase reps and really master it. Because I'm afraid that if I go too heavy, since I have that form defect, I may run into some problems. A helpful form cue that I'm constantly implementing on any movement that involves like a squat type of movement pattern. So I do it with squats, I do it with leg press and other things like that. And basically all I'm doing is with like my regular squat stance, I'm rotating out my toes so that my feet are like at this angle. And the reason for that is when you're rotating out your toes, everything else follows because your body is all connected. So by doing that, your femur inside of your hip socket actually rotates a bit and it's easier to be able to clear that bone. And therefore it allows your knees to go further back and allows for a greater range of motion and a greater depth. So just by doing that ever so slightly, you're actually going to get more range of motion and thus more growth overall, because range of motion is such a key component, especially of leg growth. I mean, that's the reason why my legs barely grew when I first started lifting, because my mobility was so bad that I would only be doing like quarter squats. And something that I attribute largely to that is because my toes were pointed straight like this. Now, the only rebuttal that I can think of for that is that people may want to target certain areas of the quads to a certain degree or level. So when your toes are pointed out, you're actually going to be targeting more inner quadriceps. And when they're more pointed in, you're going to be getting more of that outward quadriceps. But in the grand scheme of things, I think that range of motion plays a much more impactful role in overall development than just, you know, trying to preferentially target a certain area of the quads. So I think that, you know, if you're pointing in your toes and that completely like ruins your range of motion and your squat depth, then you're going to be ultimately harming your gains overall and over the long term, rather than just pointing them out and, you know, hitting pretty much the whole quad, but, you know, more so the inner portion. Anyway, I'm going up 10 pounds here. You know, last time I was really heavy, but I think that, you know, we're so naturally strong on leg press that I think that I can handle it today. Shit. So I got 2 repetitions less than last time. I don't know how I did so well last time. I got 10 on every set with 3 partials. I don't know. It's probably just because my legs are so sore from the previous leg day. So I think that last week I was saying the same deal. But whatever. I got 8, and for me that was tough failure. Maybe that 10 pounds didn't make that much of a difference. Who knows? We all have that like upper ceiling breaking point where we think that we can do more, but our body just doesn't want to. So maybe that's where my mindset should change, and maybe that's how I'll bust through that level of thinking or whatever. Anyway, honestly, I'd prefer for my repetition range on this given exercise to be more than 8, probably more than 10, just because I've spoken about this before, but I like certain lifts to have like a certain rep range, and then other lifts to have a different rep range. So like, I just think that certain lifts lend themselves better to a certain range of repetitions in a certain, you know, like these, I feel like it's like a moderate rep range is kind of where you want, like a moderate high. And then for like something that's more of a compound lift, like a more taxing compound lift, like squats or something, I prefer to have that a little bit lower, like between that 6 to 10, and then this is probably like 8 to 12, and then, you know, something like a leg extension, I'd probably have it around like 10 to 15 or so, just because that reinforces some variety in your workouts and keeps everything kind of fresh. And I just think that, why wouldn't you be hitting all the rep ranges? Why would you just choose one? And I get it if like your primary goal is just like powerlifting or strength training or strongman or something like that, and you just care about strength, then yeah, just do low reps, you know. But for somebody that kind of wants a little bit of everything, and I think that would include most people, I think that you should include all the different rep ranges that you can. So anyway, what I'm trying to say is that I'm gonna stick to this weight until I can do probably about 12 reps with it with relative ease. I think I'm starting to hit that point in my program, Myomax, where, you know, I've been increasing steadily week after week, and I think I'm starting to hit that threshold where progress is gonna slow a little bit. I don't think it's gonna stop, but it's gonna slow, at least in terms of adding weight to the bar. And I think it's inevitable, so whatever. Frick. Definitely a challenge, but a challenge is welcomed. All right, I'm just gonna cut straight to set number 3. Won't waste any more time. All right, set number 3, let's make it count. Set number 3 should be the same as set number 1, ideally. Okay, you guys know the drill. Next up, I'm getting into some direct glute work. You know, we hit glutes pretty hard on almost all of the previous lifts, not so much to the same degree with the plate loaded leg press, but we hit it really hard with the squats and with the deadlifts. So honestly, like, if you guys don't have time, I think that this would be one of the first exercises to get out of here. However, I am trying to you know, build up my glutes, and I'm sure that most people would agree. So most people would feel the same way about themselves. So you know, I'm having a direct glute exercise, and what I love about the unilateral dumbbell hip thrust is that it isn't super fatiguing, because we're just using a dumbbell. So it's almost one, like, you could just buy a dumbbell and do it at home. You could do it all the time, and I don't think that you'd really mess with your recovery too much. Versus like something like the barbell hip thrust, that one's, you know, it's going to be tremendously heavier and going to be much more fatiguing as a result. And that's why I kind of like including a little bit of both. You know, on the previous leg day, on the first leg day of each week, on day 2, we hit the barbell hip thrust just to completely destroy them. And then this one is just kind of like icing on the cake, so to speak. You know, just a little bit of extra stimulus without completely overdoing it. Because I think that if I had like any other version of a hip thrust, like a barbell variation on this day as well, we may run into some recovery issues at that point. You know what I mean? It may be a problem. You're totally fine. So, you know, that's just how I feel about it. Because you really want to be having, like, balancing all these things to the best of your ability, you know, and only so much of it can be from a point of fact and logic. A lot of it you have to play around and see just what works best for you. It's like counting calories, you know what I mean? Like, you can only count calories to a certain degree. Yes, you can be pretty accurate with how many calories you're consuming, but how accurate can you be with the calories that you're expending? That's much, much more challenging. And that's where weighing yourself each day, taking the average of each week and calculating it week over week and subtracting those totals comes into play, because you really have to find out what works best for you. Same goes with how you're going to balance your recovery and stuff. So this program, it's written with myself and the general population that, you know, not the general population, but people who are really serious, they want to take their training to the next level. That's what it's written for. And therefore, I think it'll work for most people, but it's definitely not going to work for everybody, and you have to be ready. You have to be prepared for that, I think. Okay. Oh, I'm going up 20 pounds from last time. Okay. I'm just using my other foot, my other heel as a kickstand. Some people like to have it up completely, but I like the stability component. Wow, it's kind of hard to get out of it. Sorry about that, folks. I'm gonna move the seat back. My microphone actually died. It ran out of juice, but luckily the holder that it comes with, it's kind of like Apple AirPods, where if you put it back into the case, it's actually a charging case. So while I was doing that last set, I was just charging up the juice, so then I just rested a little bit and migrated here. So you haven't missed much, you just missed one set. But anyway, I'm doing the leg extension for some added quad stimulus. It's kind of like what I was saying with that extra glute stimulus with the unilateral hip thrust. That was just kind of like icing on the cake for the glutes. This is kind of the same deal for the quads. I'm going up 5 pounds from 160 to 165. That's a drop set. Let's get it. Ooh, dang, that's definitely approaching my limit on this exercise as well, just like the leg press. But you know, that's probably a good thing. You know, finding your limits is a good thing so that we can bust through them. On this lift, more than almost any other lift, I'm making sure that I go down all the way. So I'm not slamming the weights. I'm just trying to get the weight stack to lightly touch, and then I'm exploding off just to ensure that I get that full range of motion. For me, the leg extension machine is an absolute must because it trains the quads through knee extension, and it's very difficult to isolate the quads and knee extension unless you're doing a machine like this. So you can totally do a reverse Nordic curl, or even a sissy squat kind of gets it to a larger degree than something like a traditional squat. So those are two great options. However, those are exercises that are going to fatigue you to an extremely large degree versus something like the leg extension machine. And you really got to be keeping account how much fatigue you're bringing into your workouts. And is it going to mess with your overall systemic recovery? Because that's the last thing you want, is to overdo it in one compartment and then be left with a huge disparity in another. You want everything to kind of be balanced out, or at least tailored to your liking. Oop. Forgot to go up to the original weight. How's the drop set weight? Okay. Dang, the burn is crazy from these. It really makes me tempted to rush through the last reps, and I feel like I did kind of rush a little bit. I'll have to work on that, because you shouldn't be rushing through anything with lifting. Okay, lastly, I'm doing, this is kind of like the same logic I use with the leg extension, but this is for, you know, the posterior side of the body, so the hamstrings. Just a little bit of icing on the cake, a little bit of extra stimulus without too much fatigue. We're doing the seated hamstring curl, going up 5 pounds again, for as many as I can get. Ooh, started to kind of get a cramp in my abductors. Maybe I need to start stretching a little more. I especially love this lift because if you lean forward, then you can get a maximal stretch upon the hamstrings, as well as a peak contraction, versus like the prone hamstring curl. You can't really get that maximal stretch just because of how the machine is oriented. So, you know, it's nice to get a little bit of both worlds on a given lift, but you know, regardless, I still include both, just because I think the variety is an extremely important part of the process as well. Something that some people tend to neglect. Okay, ladies and gentlemen, this is gonna do it for me for this workout, at least the stuff that I record. After this, I'm doing 3 sets of the cable crunch with the cable upright row for some additional abdominal and deltoid volume, and then we're finishing off with I think it's 3 sets of the captain's chair leg raises for some more ab work. So there's some abs and a little bit of shoulders at the end, just because I like to rotate those through so that I get a 3 to 4 times a week frequency on those, because I think that those muscles can handle it. So anyway, let's finish it off. For whatever reason, I get a very strong mind-muscle connection with this lift. Like, I can instantaneously feel the pump after too. It's great. All right, well, that's going to conclude the recording of week 3, day 5. So thank you guys so much for watching. I'll see you tomorrow for week 3, day 6. Have a good one.